Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to this edition of the DMZ America podcast for Saturday, November 2nd, a very special day. And this is a very special DMZ America podcast. I'm editorial cartoonist Scott Stantis, coming to you from the right.
And I'm editorial cartoonist Ted Rall, who's forgetting his name, coming to you from the left.
It's a bunch of old guys. Yeah, stay tuned. It gets worse.
It is a special podcast because
it is a very special podcast.
Is our longtime colleague and friend, David Horsey of the Seattle Times.
Hello. Apparently I'm coming from the center, so which means I'm going to be much more boring.
Well, actually, you know, I'm on All Sides. There's a thing on Center Clip, and Ted and I are involved in Center Clip, and so they post to All Sides, and All Sides ranks where you are in the spectrum. Yeah. And I get the big C, which I thought, that makes sense. I'm conservative. No, that's not what it means. Centrist. It means I've been around so goddamn long.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, I know.
We're really weird left and weird right? It's like, really exciting. Yeah. Hi, I'm socialist cartoonist Ted Rall. That's libertarian cartoonist Scott Stantis. That would be more accurate, but who wants to hear it, really? And
today I'm barely awake cartoonist David Horsey. So.
Yeah, because he's on the he's on the West Coast.
Yeah. We do appreciate that.
I was up late last night and just, it's my thing.
So, what were you doing, Dave?
Yeah. I actually went to a movie, The Conclave.
Ooh, it's supposed to.
Oh, how is it?
It's good. It's good. It's got a weird twist at the end, but I guess that's good. But unfortunately, I went to a late show. Oh,
it's a woman.
You just gave it away.
Damn it! And Rosebud's sled. Oh.
Well, okay. Thank you. We're done now. and Trump won this election.
I don't believe.
There we go.
God.
I do not believe in spoilers. I feel like it's all. I don't care how it ends. I just want to. I'm not a child. I mean, it's about the trip. I know when I go on vacation how it ends. I end up back home, but it's about the trip.
Okay,
actually, they've done studies on this, and they have found that spoilers don't spoil things for most people. It's like,
it's like I look at. There's some movies I've watched many times, and I don't care. I know exactly. I not only know how it ends, I know the dialogue.
Right. That's part of the pleasure. Right.
Yeah,
no one says like, "Oh, fuck Star Wars. I'm not watching."
Yeah, right. Exactly.
How it ends. Like,
Oh, Leia dies. Oh, wait. Oh, sorry.
Oh, God. Thanks, Dave.
That's late in the year.
And it's sad.
No, it's fascinating. I mean, so it really does not ruin things. People say, spoiler alert. I don't care.
Yeah, one of my favorite Western movies is Silverado, and I'm always trying to show it to my friends. And I got a little too excited the last time I showed them because I was literally saying, "Okay, here comes the line, blah blah blah," and they left.
Oh my
the room.
God, that must be so much fun for them.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, here's the thing. I'm one of those dumb people who watches movies and is surprised when there's a twist. And you sound, Dave, you're more like my wife, who knows things.
I am like your wife in so many ways.
Oh my God, Bruce Willis was dead, and she'll look at me like, "Duh. I married an idiot."
Yeah, you could tell because it was always cold, right? Whenever he was in the room, and that's
not just
that. Right.
There's a comedian who does a whole.
I was like, I've lived in New York. I know what's going on here.
You knew it was a dude.
Totally.
No, in The Sixth Sense, every guy in that audience who's married understood that for a year they lived together, but for a year she never talked to him, and we're both like, yeah, that could happen.
Yeah, well, exactly. It was so realistic. How would you even think it was anything else?
Right.
So anyway,
so let's talk about the election. I mean,
wait, what?
Dave, we have not talked about. I mean, so obviously it's been a long, strange journey to get to Harris versus Trump. How did you feel about Biden dropping out, first of all? And how did you feel about, once that happened, about Harris's ascension, as a candidate? Do you think, she was the right pick back in 2020? How do you think she's doing vis-a-vis how Biden would be doing?
Yeah. Well, it sort of goes back to what we were just saying about movies. And for much of the year, it felt like, oh, I've seen this movie, and I didn't like it the first time.
Right.
And then there's this bizarre twist. I mean, when Trump and Biden debated, and Biden was nearly comatose, I thought, okay, it's over. That's it, which for me was a very depressing thought. And then, Harris was this twist in the plot that just changed the movie so dramatically. And I, at the time, thought, I went from thinking Trump's got it to, I don't see how she loses, because he's suddenly the old guy saying crazy things. That's what people didn't like about Biden. Why would they like it about Trump? But that's actually not been the dynamic.
Why do you think that is? It has not been the dynamic.
Yeah, because, well, it's people are so locked in, and I realize that this is something I guess I came too late, because I was a naive, callow young lad well into my later years. I used to believe that if you got a group of people who disagree on everything, got them into a room, and we all sat around and talked about, exchanged ideas, talked about facts, that people would come to a consensus. And now I am convinced that most people act in the world based on the myths that make them feel good. So it didn't to the people who support, most of the people who support Trump, why would it make any difference? They already believe preposterous things about him. So,
well, or do they? I mean, I'm not so sure that they actually. I think that, like a lot of Democrats or liberals or antitrust Trump Republicans assume that Trump supporters believe a lot of the things that he says. I'm not sure that's right. I think they just like the things that he says, and those aren't really the same. That's not really the same thing.
I actually think they like something even more basic. They like that they're being recognized. This guy says, "I see you," because the worst thing that Biden could have done, he did, which was open his yapper and say Trump voters are garbage. It just confirms in all of their minds that is exactly how Democrats perceive them, that they're a basket of deplorables. And so, fuck you. I'm not going to vote Democratic anymore. You guys don't speak for me, talk to me. And of course, there's also the bro issue.
There's a major bro issue.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, the other in Harris's interview with Bret Baier, at one point he asks her, "Do you think all these Trump voters are stupid?" Or and of course she avoided that. If I had
she
been
didn't
asked
do
that,
it very well. She said, like, there's no. She just said, like, well, I wouldn't say that about the American.
I wouldn't say that.
I mean, it's not the same thing as no. The correct answer is no. American voters are not stupid people. Americans are not stupid. Voters are not stupid. Democrats are not stupid. Republicans are not stupid. That's
even though it's all of that is empirically not true.
Right, exactly. Well, that's what I was getting to. If I think most voters are stupid, not stupid in literally dumb, but ignorant. So many people are tuned out all the time. It's just they're not interested.
Right.
And so then they find, when so-called undecided voters are interviewed, they're always saying, well, they always use this phrase, I still need to do my research. It's like, yeah, are you really what's your research gonna be?
Politics is the only field of endeavor and discussion in America where you can say, I don't know anything about this.
Right.
I'm completely entitled to have the same vote as someone who lives and breathes this profession. I mean,
exactly.
It would be like, I don't watch football. I can't even name more than, say, 8 NFL franchises, right? So, but should I get to vote on the Heisman Trophy? No, because I'm a fucking idiot when it comes to football, right?
Yeah. And,
I mean, I was offered a tuning job at the ESPN. I turned it down because I don't follow sports.
Right,
I should not be permitted to vote.
Yeah. So, and of course, as soon as you say, because I think I've had the thought that every voter should at least pass the test that immigrants have to pass to become citizens. But
forget it. 2%.
Yeah, but yeah, no, it would wipe out most voters.
Sure.
Maybe even me. I don't know. And of course, that's wrong. We had terrible tests in the South for people, and but if everybody had to do it, maybe that would be fair. Maybe, but that's never going to happen. But in my perfect world, that might be the case because, and I don't know if people are more ignorant than ever. I think in some ways the general lack of interest in politics has been exacerbated by social media, and so how we're all siloed into different sets of facts or non-facts. But maybe people have always been that way. But until Trump, the choice given to voters by the two major parties were always sort of within the bounds of rationality. There were some bad characters who've run for president, or mediocre characters, but nobody quite. Yeah, but I'm talking about major candidates, especially in the 20th century. It's hard to think of any major party candidate nominee who was all that scary until Trump came along, and so suddenly the ignorance has a bigger effect because just the person who's sort of randomly going with a gut feeling now might randomly go with this character who is unfit for office.
Mike Thompson, formerly of the USA Today, had a great quote when he was talking about the 2016 election. He said, up to that point, we went through about 230 years of trying to get the best and the brightest to ascend to the highest office. He said, it just seemed like in 2016, we collectively decided, let's give the dumbasses a shot at it.
I know. And it's like, it turns out they're a majority.
I have to admit, I was just going to say, real quick observation. I want to know what Dave thinks. I didn't realize 2016 was an eye-opener for me because I had been fighting, and debating and supporting Republican politics, Republican politicians, and Republican voters. I just did not recognize. And so, there was always that element that I'm going to call the George Wallace element, right? Racist,
right.
snarling, surly. And I didn't realize how many of those there are in this country. And apparently they vote.
Yeah. I think you're mistaken, Scott. I mean, I think the Trump coalition is not. I mean, it's not a monolith, right? I mean, it is a big tent. I mean, look, probably 35% of the voters will vote for any Republican, whether it be a rutabaga or a yam or whatever. It does not matter. Any kind of tuber. What Trump did is he motivated a lot of people who had never voted, disaffected people who were non-voters, who might have been third-party George Wallace voters. Now, since you brought him up, that kind of someone who's like they were motivated by, like, say, Ross Perot or someone like that. And Trumpism is a raised middle finger to the ruling elites, is what it is. And I met a lot. I'm from Ohio, where people are very polite, actually, and temperate. They're very common sense Americans, and I was very surprised that a lot of the people I grew up with had voted for Trump, and I was like, you like him? I mean, he's like this spoiled little impetuous billionaire piece of shit. And they're like, we hate him. He's rude. He's crude. He's socially unacceptable. He's disgusting. We're trying to wake up the fucking Democrats. Like, we're trying to, because there's only two parties, right? So all you can do is flail between these two choices. There's no other way to send a message. If you could write, it's like when you're driving and you wish you could talk to the other driver. Like, dude, I'm not really trying to fuck with you, but I need to get past you because I'm in a hurry. You wish you could talk to them, but you can't. It's like, if the voters could talk to Washington or the Brit Lar or to the New York Times editorial board, they'd be like, NAFTA sucks. And we don't want any, and you guys left us behind, and we're pissed. But they can't do that. So instead, they vote for Trump, and they're like, maybe the system will. I think it's a cri de coeur. They're angry.
I think you're right. What's, to me, the ignorant part of it is a vote for Trump is not really in their interest. It's like shout. It's a shout. It's a fuck you. It's a middle finger, but it's not much more because he's not going to give them any.
Yeah,
I don't think they expect to get anything out of the system. I
And
think
maybe,
that Democrat or Republican alike, they don't think anybody's going to deliver, say, codified Roe v. Wade, or socialized health care, or unlimited unemployment benefits, or a real assault on the opioid crisis. I don't think or retraining for deindustrialized jobs. I don't
Right.
think they think they're going to get that from anybody. So therefore, that's not an issue for them.
Well, I think another thing that the media has always been involved with, or paid too much attention to, as well as many sort of informed voters, is you just hear this thing. Well, let's talk about policy. Why aren't they talking about policy? And Joe Biden seemed to have the illusion that people actually, that the voters he wanted to switch over, especially the working class voters who are so, angry and voting for Trump, they don't care about the infrastructure bill, or that he's been good for unions, or policy doesn't matter to most voters, I don't think. And
I think the infrastructure bill is going to be one of those things that 10 years from now, you're going to be like, oh, this is a Biden bridge, that we're driving across right now. Or this is a Biden train station. Or this is a Biden e-car dock. It's going to be, but, oh, yeah, that guy, he died like 5 years ago, right? Like, that's what it's going to be like.
No, didn't he die 5 years ago now? No.
From today.
Kind of, yeah. No, I mean, I think it was too early, I think, is my point. It's kind of like...
Oh, of course.
Yeah,
it takes forever for this to sink in. It's like right now we're told the American economy is the envy of the world, but I don't think Biden's going to get credit for that. If Trump is reelected and things are going well, they'll say, "See, he fixed it."
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Let me
There's
ask you,
always a
David,
lag. Yeah.
I'm just going to ask you what you thought now, switching the focus to the Democratic candidate, Vice President Kamala Harris, what your thoughts are on her campaign so far. As you mentioned, when she came on the scene at the Democratic convention, high enthusiasm, high marks, looked like, we're going to march to November and and sweep everything. And well, wah, wah. What are your thoughts on her campaign? You covered this stuff. You've been around as long as I have and seen most of what I've seen.
Yeah, I think I had the thought actually just yesterday. So it's a relatively fresh thought that if she loses, there will be a host of pundits analyzing what she did wrong and how she lost and blah, blah, blah. And I think nobody runs a perfect campaign.
Nope.
But she's run, given the how quickly it had to happen, she's run a pretty good one, and she's been a much better candidate than a lot of people expected, because there were low expectations. I think if she loses, it's just she loses. I'm not sure any Democrat could beat the anger, the solid block of anger. Well,
I think certainly I could imagine a younger version of Bernie Sanders being able to tap into that same anger. I don't know. It's just, I mean, it seems to me like there's some unforced errors and a more supple candidate might have been able to do this. I mean, for example, on Israel and Gaza, which could cost her the state of Michigan and maybe Wisconsin also. She is, I mean, what would be so hard about saying, when I become president, I'm going to reevaluate every policy, including foreign policy, including America's relationship with Israel and its support for the war in Gaza. And that's not a promise to do or say or change anything, but it's just like, but it would be like a signal. Like, I'm kind of like willing, it's not necessarily going to keep on going the way it's been going, instead of the signal that she's been given, which is the bombs are going to keep raining down on Gaza and Lebanon, which is, if you're, living in Dearborn and your grandma got blown up, is not going to make you full of joy.
Well, that's quite possible. It's also possible if she'd done that, she would have been attacked unmercifully by Republicans for abandoning Israel.
Well,
I don't know.
anyway. Republicans going to attack no matter what. It's like
Right, but that might have moved some other voters. I guess it's. I guess I'm trying to avoid sort of nitpicking. Like if she'd done this, then she would have won. But that might have caused something else. I don't know. What do you think?
I'm going to disagree with you, Dave, on her campaign. I think it's been a poor campaign, and Ted Rall and I obviously talked about this in great length, and he came up with a phrase that I think really does describe her, and it's not mean. It's just, but it's true. Untalented. She's not a talented politician, in the sense that Reagan was talented, in the sense that Kennedy was talented, in the sense that FDR was talented, or even Clinton or Obama, who could project this optimism. Remember, this was going to be an election of joy, right? Of looking to the future, and we haven't gotten that. We've gotten certainly the ads that we see are all grindingly negative from both sides. But I expected like a 50-50 from her. And this isn't nitpicking. This is just saying, what are you projecting? Are you projecting this optimism? Are you projecting this future? And I don't know that she's done that. I don't know that she can. Tim Walz certainly, in his debate performance, showed all of us that he cannot, which was shocking. Frankly, I was stunned, given that.
However, he does make history, because if elected, he would become the first vice president who's ever been a dog. He's like a dog. He's like,
you're gonna have to explain that, Ted. You can't just.
Yeah, is this like the Shaggy Dog, the good old movie?
He's a dog. He's a human dog. Like,
I was shocked. Talking about, I got several.
I'll chase the ball.
Several terms in the House, 2 terms as a governor of an American state. My presumption was that he would even be more lucid, more flexible when discussing things with the press, and especially in. When you're looking at this election, you're thinking the one saying, like, seemingly mainstream candidate is J.D. Vance. I mean, that's stunning to me.
You consider him mainstream.
Well, I don't consider him mainstream.
He made MAGA sound mainstream. I mean, it was honestly, remarkable.
He was amazing in that vice presidential debate. He just was. And I think, honestly, conventional wisdom initially was that he was a poor choice. But I think he's adding to the Trump ticket. I think there are people who are like, well, I can see a future beyond Trump. If Trump, Trump is now as old as Biden was when he was elected. We know what happened. We now have found the expiration date of an American presidential candidate, 77. They can't run any older than that. Right. There should be a constitutional amendment done. So Trump, I mean, come on. We've already seen he's decompensating before our very eyes. And, he was always a nut to begin with. So I don't know if I can imagine him making it to 82 in the Oval Office, just like Biden. And Biden didn't. And so, people are like, well, look at the Veep. And it's like, obviously for liberals, it makes them cringe. But I think a lot of Republicans are like, I could see that werewolf-looking young man as our president in the future.
Well, I think he very well could be. If Trump is elected, he could, the 25th Amendment might be invoked immediately. But
not when your cabinet has Elon Musk and RFK Jr. They're not going to sit around the table and go, that guy in the middle, he's crazy.
Yeah. Well, so going back to Harris, I think we're still looking for a perfect candidate. I certainly in 2020, I certainly wouldn't have picked Joe Biden, because I went to the South Carolina primary and saw a number of the candidates, and Pete Buttigieg was very impressive, and Amy Klobuchar was, and when I saw Biden, he gave this insane speech that made no sense, and I thought, this guy's horrible. I certainly hope he's not the nominee. And then, of course, he wins by, a good margin, and there he is. But in a way, maybe he was the best candidate for that year. Lucky for him, because of COVID, he was just famously locked in the basement. So it was a long distance campaign, and people could just project on him what they wanted. That he was the calm choice.
Mm-hmm.
And this year, Harris is far from a perfect candidate, but I don't know exactly how it would have gone otherwise, other than Biden being the candidate, which would have been
that would have been worse.
Disaster.
It would not be close.
I don't see how just the process could have worked. I mean, there are theoretically ways that somehow we could have thrown it open, but would Gavin Newsom be doing better? I don't know.
Oh God, no.
Maybe
no, right. So it's just there's.
I think
Whitmer from
Michigan
Michigan
run for re-election. I think in 2022 the DNC should have pushed him out. Nancy Pelosi should have pushed him out. Obama should have pushed him out. When they decided to let him run again, that's when everything that follows from that. And it's like if she loses, it'll be because of that decision. I mean, obviously,
I know this is
storm, but
and I know this is late, but I thought the idea of a truncated primary type structure prior to the convention, it would have been 10 days. But I don't know that Harris survives that, quite frankly.
I don't think so either.
Well,
Whitmer would have performed extremely well.
She only got 0.6% of the primary vote
in
2020, right? I mean, she was very unpopular.
Yeah. So here we are now. We have these two candidates. We have a campaign that has barely shifted for who knows how long. I will ask a question and answer it myself, and then you can. I mean, so.
I can go do things.
I mean,
clean the gutters.
So who wins this? What is this unpredictable election? Wait, no. That's not the question.
Oh, okay.
It's actually, how does someone win? And my theory is that makes me still lean slightly, like in the tiniest way, toward Harris pulling it off is turnout.
Mm-hmm.
I think despite whatever her flaws may be and the inadequacies of her campaign, the Democrats are freaked out by Trump, and they are the ground game. I'll give you an example. There's an organization in Washington State here called Common Power, and they started a few years ago to take all these good Seattle liberals and send them to swing states just to be campaign workers. And when a friend of mine started this, and when he started, I thought, that sounds so goofy, or not goofy. But I thought, well, that's kind of cute. But anyway, he is sending hundreds and hundreds of Seattle liberals to 14 different states. I have a friend who just came back from Nevada. Before that, she was in Arizona. So there are a lot of
Springfield, Ohio. They might get eaten.
Exactly. But there are all these Democrats out there on the ground trying to turn out the vote, whereas the Republicans seem to be depending on Elon Musk hiring a bunch of homeless people to go knock on doors. If it's that close, maybe that's all that matters.
Well, that does make a difference, of course, obviously.
Hey, Ted, why don't we take this as the transition now, because we're coming up on 28 minutes to, why don't we just say now is the time where we're going to do the lock box, our predictions. And so why don't we start with Dave? Dave, so your prediction is, okay, it's a two-part question.
Okay.
Two-part question. Who do you want and who do you think will win?
Ooh.
Well, I obviously do not want Donald Trump, so that leaves me with Kamala Harris. And I really have no idea who's going to win, but simply because of what I just said, I think maybe that what perceived advantage in just turning out voters might push Kamala over the edge. So I say Kamala Harris.
Okay. Ted, who do you want and who will win and by how much?
So I wrote here in New York.
There's an entire beer for those listening and watching. There's an entire beer.
Domestic or foreign?
All right.
Beer of the winner's choice.
Ooh. All right. Well, I'll have to choose something fancy.
All right.
All right, so I voted here in New York write-in for Dr. Jill Stein of the Green Party and her running mate Butch Ware. So that's obviously who I would like to see win. And I could not, in good conscience, obviously, look, I've never voted for a Republican candidate in any race in my entire life. So I'm not going to start with Donald Trump. Okay, so if I ever decide to go to the dark side, it's not going to be there. You know, in terms of Kamala Harris, I honestly could not, in good conscience, support her for a variety of reasons. She is too far to the right. In my view, she's an embodiment of the current realignment that we're seeing in politics, where basically the Democratic and Republican parties have more or less maintained their traditional stances on domestic policy, but in terms of foreign policy, they've really reversed roles. And the Democrats have become very militaristic and bellicose. I do not support U.S.'s support of Ukraine or Israel, and I don't support having 1,400 military bases around the world. So I don't see any sign of any of that changing under President Harris. And I'm also really disappointed with her unwillingness to articulate any kind of need to have some economic reforms. I mean, unemployment benefits need to be extended, federally. There should be a far more, aggressive move to make the federal minimum wage much higher. It should be $30, $40, $50 an hour at this point. If it had kept up with inflation since 1970, it would currently be $30 an hour. So that it should be more. And so she's just too far to the right. So that's that for me.
So you want Jill Stein. Who do you think will win?
Well, so like David, I don't.
So this isn't fair. He actually thought about this question.
Like David, first time for everything. Like David, I have absolutely no idea who's going to win, and I can definitely make a case for Kamala Harris winning because, Scott, you and I discussed offline the incredible turnout effort that Dave described. The turnout effort by the Democrats is very professional, very high tech, and very well funded. They have 3 times more money. That's not nothing. I would say that could make up for the enthusiasm gap, with the Republicans. So she can easily win. I would not be at all surprised. Now that said, I look at the trending of the polls, and just as a numbers guy, it just seems like the polls have been trending toward Trump over the last few weeks. Early voting tends to benefit her because her campaign seems to have peaked out about 3-4 weeks ago in terms of excitement, joy, blah, blah, blah. So all those early votes, tens of millions of early votes benefit her. But still, I think I've got to give it to Trump just because I think Trump's going to carry Pennsylvania. And I think she can't win without it. I've driven across Pennsylvania a few times, and it's just like, man, that's Trump territory. That's what I think is going to happen. I mean, I think it's going to be Trump by a nose on the popular vote, and maybe by a goodly margin, for the Electoral College. I just think that there's also the phenomenon of the underpolled, shy Trump poll respondents who just don't want to admit it, who they're voting for. And also there's the angry dude factor. I mean, guys feel really insulted by this campaign. And I have to admit, I feel insulted by the Kamala Harris campaign. I mean, literally when you have the kind of carping, Michelle Obama the other day saying, you have no idea what we go through. It's like, you don't know what it's like to be a woman. You have to support us. It's like, I think a lot of guys are going to go to the polls and say, I don't have to fucking do anything. And I'm here like in the sanctity of my private booth, and I can fill out a little circle that says, fuck you. So that's why I'm going to say Trump.
So you think those dudes will show up? They won't be home smoking weed and watching,
and begging their wives not to hurt them.
I think 2016, 2020 has shown that these guys do get out and they do vote.
Yeah. It's not like Bernie people. What else? This is a cultural phenomenon where
the factory shut down 6 years ago. They got nothing else to do.
Right.
And so this is it.
And they're old.
So And thanks for asking, Ted. Yes, I'll tell you my prediction.
Well, and then there were three.
To Dave's point, I've been making this, and I've been talking to friends. Dave, it sounds like your friend's involved in this as well. Like high profile Democrats in California, Arizona, and Illinois, and what they're doing. I mean, I have a friend who is a very highly regarded, high end, very expensive Democratic consultant who's going up to Wisconsin and Michigan to do canvassing. I mean, for those of us who've covered this, that's unheard of for those guys to sully themselves with doing that kind of work.
Right.
But they're doing it, and they're doing it in large numbers. The Harris campaign has raised over $1.2 billion, which blows my fucking
crazy.
mind. I got to be honest. I think we got to do something about that, but that's another podcast. But Dave makes the absolute correct point. The Harris campaign is using it for voter turnout. Mm-hmm. The Trump campaign is using it on airtime. They've bought significantly more airtime than Harris now, and they're hoping commercials and Elon Musk doing whatever impregnating people
and giving them strange names.
Exactly. That seems to be enough. Turnout is going to be essential. It's what worked in 2020 because Democrats were so energized and so pissed off at Trump.
And Trump stupidly told people not to vote by mail.
Right. He's changed that this time around. Will that have a significant difference? I don't know. But my prediction, drum roll, please. Okay, first, who do I want? Dave, I know you're a big fan of the podcast. And I know
absolutely.
Never miss one.
A few weeks ago, we had Chase Oliver, the Libertarian candidate for president. And my God, if he had been on the debate stage, he'd be polling at 20-25%.
Same thing with Jill Stein, honestly.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, it is a little bit crazy that the two candidates who are in the lead are the worst ones. And the two that are, like, if there were all four there and there was no party affiliation, right? No blue, no green, no red. People would, what's the libertarian color? Gray? I don't know. Anyway, but the point
we don't have a color.
You don't need
That's an individual choice.
I think it's very white. No.
Yeah, very white, right.
I don't think it is, but please
continue. Just kidding.
If you had those four people, I'm pretty sure they'd be pretty evenly matched. I mean, really.
Yes. Well, Chase Oliver had the good taste to come on our podcast, so I'm.
Well, yeah. I would. So of course you're for him.
And I like him better now too.
Yeah, you vote for me now because I'm on.
Right, that's true.
Yeah, Dave Horsey. Well, yeah, given those choices,
I would totally vote for Dave Horsey for president.
I would totally vote for Dave Horsey too.
Not to mention, Dave Horsey was, I've already seen his leadership style because we co-hosted
a
convention together, and I know he's a sound and imaginative leader during difficult times.
Exactly, and I'd appoint you guys to my cabinet. So whatever you want.
All right.
Well, 25th Amendment like that. So who do I want? I'd love Chase Oliver to he does have no chance, and I recognize that. But I'm still that's up. This is I'll address that in a moment. Who will win is Kamala Harris by, if not a blowout, it will be an obvious, comfortable victory.
Okay.
In my sense. I think that
if he wins, you definitely want it to be by a good margin.
Oh yeah, because the
Trumpies are going to go crazy.
They already are. I mean, they already are. It's hilarious. I mean, they're already posting fake and fake videos of people.
That plan's been locked in for a long time.
Yep.
And it was locked in.
I remember last time I did a cartoon of just a not a real Republican candidate, but he's up there. He's won the election, and he's decrying the system and saying, "I will fight this." and his handlers are on the side saying, "He's just staying on message here."
Anyway, true, but I say Harris. And so, to your question, Ted, I'm still debating. I have, like you, on the other side. I have never, ever, ever, never, ever, ever voted for a Democrat on a national ticket in my life. Never even considered it. It was never an option. It was either a Republican or a Libertarian. But this time, because I think it's important that Harris build the numbers, even here where I live in Alabama, where Trump's going to win by 60 get 60% of the vote. I think it's important that those numbers add up nationally and show that there's clearly a large majority of people who do not want Donald Trump to be back in the Oval Office. And so I'm still debating that. I'll probably make that decision when I get into the voting booth Tuesday. I still haven't voted. Dave, have you voted yet?
No, I've got my little envelope sitting over on the table. I'll probably vote this weekend. In Washington State, it's all by mail. Nobody gets to go walk into a booth.
Wait, really?
Totally, yes. It's all mail-in vote. Yep.
I'm a little shocked. So there's no voting booths. There's no going to the schools or churches or whatever. Or
no, it's totally corrupt. It's a totally corrupt system, obviously. They've already filled out everything. No, it's all mail-in voting. That, in fact, it's not only all mail-in. There's no. It's a top 2 primary as well. So it's kind of the new world.
Oh, right. Yeah, you guys.
Yeah.
Explain that. How does that work?
Voting, right?
Well, so in the primary, the two candidates that get the highest vote win.
Nonpartisan, right?
Right. It's a nonpartisan race. So on the ballot.
Like a jungle primary. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the jungle, man. It's cool. Oh! But yeah, so usually it ends up with a Republican and Democrat in the general election, but not always. Sometimes it's a couple of Democrats running against each other, or on the eastern side of the state, it's a couple of Republicans running against each other. But yeah, this is one of those states where if you're a Republican, for national elections and for statewide elections, you will never win.
It's like California.
Yeah, exactly.
You're just fucked. They never got it. They never.
Which is why all these Democrats are going to other states, because there's nothing to do here. Everyone knows who's going to win.
And I don't hear any Republicans from Alabama going anywhere else to canvass. I mean, that is going to be. And let me show a little secret. A friend of ours, Ted and I know from Chicago. She's a radio personality up there, and she is doing work for the Democratic Party and canvassing in Wisconsin. She'll go to a house. Each canvasser, Dave, you probably already know this, has an app, and it'll tell you, has this person cast their ballot?
Yeah.
And so you go to their house and you go, hey, you didn't cast your ballot, and she said one of the best selling points of all is, we'll stop bothering you when you vote. Which I love.
But people could lie and say, oh, I already voted.
Right. Yeah. Sure. I'm sure. Yeah. My friend who was just in Nevada canvassing said, for the most part, everyone she met, including Republicans, were very cordial and nice. Although she said she did go up to one house, and right before she started knocking, she heard gunshots and thought, maybe I'll skip this one.
Yeah, that's terrible.
Yeah, and apparently a neighbor came out and said, no, you don't want to go there. So,
really?
It's America. But for the most part, everyone was nice, and and no one got mad at her. But she also told me that apparently Scarlett Johansson is doorbelling somewhere, and I have the thought that if she knocked on my door and asked me to vote for Trump, I would probably do it. Yeah, sure. Yeah. You want to come in? You want a drink?
Yeah, you just cloned Scarlett Johansson.
Just send her everywhere.
Elon Musk can help with that.
Well, I suspect we're looking at a record voter turnout Tuesday, but it's going to be massive. There's already lines at early voting places around the country. Yeah. Ted, was there? I mean, you didn't go somewhere, did you, to vote?
I did. Yeah. There's a different.
And was it crowded?
My normal polling place is in New York. We do a different thing, and a lot of the polling places have had to change because migrants are being housed in the cafeterias of the schools where a lot of polling takes place. But anyway, I went over there. It was my local intermediate high school, and which is like a junior high school in most other places. Anyway, it was packed. I mean, it was going gangbusters. like 2 in the afternoon, you know, on a weekday. It was like, holy shit. I mean, it was like getting a table at Sardi's on theater night. I mean, it was like churn, and they had like, I don't know, 25 booths going strong. So,
And before I let you guys go,
everyone here in my, this is one of the absolute bluest precincts in the United States. I mean, last time I think it went 99.2% for Biden. And I'm like, so I want to know where the Republicans are. I want to meet them.
Where's the 0.8%?
Well, well, that's very much like the precinct I live in here. In blue Seattle, it is the bluest. I don't know what's beyond blue, but yeah, I don't think there was a single
it's
Trump
like the Marianas Trench.
Yeah, but I miss going to the polling place. You know, mail-in voting's handy, but it felt exciting.
It's like ritual.
Wow, it was a ritual, and I take my kids.
Small town voting's the best. I used to live in the Hamptons, and I'd go to the local firehouse.
Oh,
and
yeah.
You're next to the fire trucks, and
right.
And the police chief is there. Hey, Ted. You know.
Yeah.
All that being said, okay, so the aftermath. It is now Wednesday, November 6th, and going forward. Are we going to see what so many people are predicting? We've already had gunshots fired at the Democratic headquarters in Tucson. They caught the guy, and who's apparently, you know, boy genius. And he said that he was going to come back later.
He's been shot at once. And someone was laying in wait for him another time all day long. Political violence is, and also we should probably talk about the House and the Senate. But anyway, go on, Scott.
Oh, I think that. Well, okay, I have definite views on that too. Gone through
political
the
violence,
granular,
yay or nay, right? So President-elect Harris, what happens? Well, it's not going to be another January 6th. It will not be that.
Yeah, I think.
I disagree on it.
If Harris wins, we're going to go through a couple of months of just craziness. But the whole Stop the Steal rewrite. But Trump is not in the White House. It's going to be a harder thing to run. And I think there may well be some violence, but most of these characters are big talkers, and especially after so many people went to jail for November 6th, they're too lazy to to take to the streets.
And they're not organized.
So it's really what I think, and I've been trying to describe this to some of my Democratic friends who kind of think if Harris wins, you know, like, great, everything's fixed. No, it's not.
Oh, no.
I mean, Trump may go away, but all of the dynamic that we have in this country is not going away. If Trump is president, it'll go to a new level. There are a lot of things to worry about. I think the federal government will become inoperable, but this isn't over. The struggle continues. I told this to my daughter when she was a teenager. I said, it never ends. Struggle is the permanent state of humanity.
We always think if we just do this one thing, then we'll be good. We can just chill in a hammock the rest of our lives.
Right. Yeah.
No, and to be perfectly, with all due respect, disagree on, there won't be a January 6th, but there'll be a bunch of mini January 6th.
I think that's quite possible.
There could be some lone wolf gunmen.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to be a lone wolf. I think it's going to be en masse. It's going to be around the country. They're going to be going to where they're counting the votes, breaking in. And these are, I mean, we all met these people. We all know them. They're just some like 70-year-olds who are just like, you know, retired, and they just do this because it keeps them involved. And they're, you know, just gingerly, honestly counting votes. And then they're going to be, you know, and you have these cosplayer jagoffs from rural wherever. Yeah. And with their AK-47s and their Kevlar jackets that don't fit because they're so fucking fat. And they're going to go.
No fat shaming the mass murderers of the future.
I'm sorry. To all of our mass murderers listening right now, I take it back and I apologize from the bottom of my heart.
You guys are beautiful. We love you.
Yeah, and yes, and my address is not available, so go to Scott's house.
I live in Alabama. We got guns.
Oh yeah,
And
actually, you're
in
surrounded,
Alabama.
pal.
Yeah, we're well armed. No one's coming in here. But I'm saying that there will be, I think, numerous instances. Watch for that beginning November 5th. I think you're going to see
I could see that. Yeah,
I could see it too. What about the House and the Senate? I mean, I was thinking in a Harris administration, she's going to have to deal with at least one Republican House, probably the Senate for sure.
Senate's going Republican, no doubt.
No doubt about that. And the House could too. But I mean, we're going to see paralyzed government. Are we going to see a replay of very naive, very cute Barack Obama, who just couldn't believe that he couldn't get any Republicans to work with him?
Yeah, of course.
Probably. Yeah.
She seems to think that she can get Republicans to work with her.
Well, a GOP Senate, sans my senator, Tommy Tuberville, has shockingly been doing its job over the last 8 years actually. It very quietly, it does what it's supposed to do in large
except
part.
for confirming judicial appointments.
It did that better than most, actually. And what it was with Tommy Tuberville, it was military appointments and promotions, and that's what he stood in the way of, because he's what do we call it? An asshole. Yeah, that's the word. And terrible. He's actually, and if you know anything about him down here, he doesn't live here. Doesn't have a house in Alabama. Doesn't live here. As soon as he got ass canned from his job at Auburn University, he moved out. He lives in Florida. He is Florida's third senator. Just
you don't actually have to live even in a state or a district that you represent as a congressman.
You have to have something
senator.
like a residence. Now, take that in front of a judge.
Right.
Something like a residence.
Something.
You could have an Airbnb like that. You stay.
He's got a
PO box.
He has a locker at Auburn.
He had a place allegedly, like a condo or something. So
well, I'm assuming the House. Well, I mean, if Democrats take the House, then it's a different dynamic. But if it remains within a few votes in Republican hands, I think it'll be
it's going to be
a continuation of the dysfunction with Republicans fighting themselves.
Well, it's also going to be investigation-a-palooza in the House Committee.
Yeah. Well, the impeachment of Kamala Harris will begin
foregone conclusion
on January 20th.
No question. Yeah. No.
Well, we better wrap things up here, Ted.
Everybody gets impeached, right? Like it's like Oprah. Everybody
gets. I know. That's part of the deal.
Yeah. You know that.
Yeah, it's like. Would you like to wrap things up here?
I think we need to wrap things up because our producer says we have to wrap things up.
Yeah.
Well, okay. Because
speaking of political violence,
your overlords. Okay.
Yes. So, Dave, where can we see all things Horseyan?
Well, the easiest place, I guess, is to go to seattletimes.com. Because other than that, I don't have a website, I'm totally almost disconnected from social media. So, and I think Tribune has some sort of website. I should know these things, but yeah.
Yeah, no, you're also on Go Comics.
But at this point in my career, I don't care.
awesome.
We're all going to be out of a job anyway. So, but yeah, seattletimes.com is the best place, and I've got a new collection of my cartoons coming out as soon as this election is over, so I can put in the last cartoon, and it's called Unhinged USA, and Amazon.com will be where you can find that.
Awesome.
Love it.
Unhinged USA.
All right. Thank you so much, Dave Horsey.
Well, this is great fun. Always good hanging out.
We're not done yet.
Oh, okay. Is there another game?
Where can we find all these?
No. Well, there's two things. I'm going to say all things you can see from me. Go to gocomics.com/Scott Stantis. Go to gocomics.com/Prickly City. See my political comic strip. Go to Chicago Tribune and see the work I do for them. Go to Dallas News and see the work I do for the Dallas Morning News. Go to smirkonish.com and the work I do for his newsletter. And before I hand it off to Ted, I want to publicly apologize to David Horsey for
Yeah?
a review of his book I wrote in the early 1980s.
I remember that, you asshole.
No, see, I knew you'd remember it because
What was
I
the
remember it
review?
because
Just like,
I
fuck
feel
Hart.
it was pretty much, this is awful. He's a hack. Don't. And I was just like, it was the biggest assholery I have ever publicly performed privately.
That's almost
Plenty
like
of
Ted Rall
instances.
in its
It
level
was
of
horrible, and I apologize
Where did
from the
this thing
bottom of my
appear?
heart.
Yeah,
In Target magazine.
that's right. Yeah. And I actually remember a line from it. You said, I wake up every
Okay.
morning trying to think of what Pat Oliphant might be drawing. And actually,
Yeah.
that's probably true.
That's what I do. Maybe I think I was just projecting.
That's
And
actually kind of a compliment, but anyway, I long ago forgave you. Don't worry.
Well, no, I do worry. It feels like, as you get older, you have these regrets pop up. And that was one of them. It's just like, what an asshole. What a terrible, awful thing to do when A, I didn't believe it. And two, I thought I was being, rugged and, cutting edge and really
Right.
telling truth to power. And I'm just like, no, I was just being a dick. So, David, from the
I have so much power.
back then we did. Editorial cartoons did matter.
Now we're doing podcasts. Jeez.
Yeah, so anyway, from the bottom of my heart, 35 or almost 40 years later, I apologize. So,
All right,
Ted,
accepted.
where can we see all things Ted Rawlian?
I cannot possibly follow that up. You can go to my website, rall.com, RALL.com. Check out my other podcast show, the TMI Show with Mindela Chan, Monday through Friday, 10 o'clock Eastern on YouTube and Rumble, unless YouTube decides to finally censor us, which happened on our Friday episode.
Oh.
Our guest kind of cast a little bit of doubt on vaccines, and then suddenly we were dark. So that was.
I could just see that black and white chicken, Yeah,
yeah, it was unfortunate.
Stand by.
Yeah,
Right,
and
right.
go to gocomics.com/Ted Rall, and whowhatwhy.org. I have a new cartoon up there over this weekend, so we'll leave that there. And so yeah, I guess this may be the last DMZ America podcast before
we're sent to the camps.
Well, yes, exactly. It could be a lot worse than we think. Who knows?
Right,
I don't
guys.
look good in stripes. I just don't. They're very thickening.
Hey,
Well, I hope I'm in a cell with you guys.
Oh, Dave, that's so
It
sweet.
would be great.
All right. Well, Dave, thanks so much for joining us. Scott, always a pleasure. And see you guys in a couple of days. Bye, everybody. I'm just going to hit the...
Ciao, bye.